Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. So a few weeks ago during a Sunday Show and Tell video, I was talking about Nacelle Toys putting out the first wave of Star Trek figures. Well, while I was on Nacelle's website, I found a line that I didn't even know existed, that I didn't know Nacelle made, and that was their Legends of Laughter series. Now, unfortunately, I don't think this series did very well because when I was at the website, there were only 2 figures for sale. One of them was Bill Hicks, and the other one was the only Lenny Bruce. So go ahead and leave this video a like because Lenny is who we are talking about today. If you don't know who Lenny Bruce is, I am very sorry he has been kept out of your consciousness. But there's going to be a bit of a history lesson at the end of the video, so stick around to the end for that. Now, what we have here for his packaging, this is so much a 1960s aesthetic, actually looking like something out of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, which if you don't know what Laugh-In is, that doesn't mean anything to you, but trust me, it looked a lot like this. From the colors, to the font, to the marquee light up right here, even that ugly tile work that's going on in the back of the box right there. Up top, we got Lenny's name. On the side, more of the same. Over here, it's a mirror. And then on the back right here, we have a really nice piece of art featuring Lenny in action with that trademark small club brickwork going on behind him. Now on the cross cell down here, we have Bill Hicks and we have Joan Rivers. I don't know if they ever made Joan Rivers because I didn't see her on the website unless Joan sold out, because she's probably the most famous of the 3 that are on here. Also, Lenny and Bill, I believe, were on sale for like $17, so I'll put a link to them in the description below. Also, both of them, they have a variant where you can get the figure plus a vinyl, a record of their work, of one of their comedy shows. I didn't get the record because I don't have a record player, but now I'm kind of regretting not getting it just to have it. I think the vinyl was from his Carnegie Hall performance, which once again, we'll talk a little bit about at the end of the video. But we have a bit of a bio right here that Lenny Bruce was a brilliant comic and a legendary pioneer in the history of comedy. His sharp, often critic commentary landed him in trouble with authorities and even jail. His refusal to quit and his infamous obscenity trial paved the way for stand-up comedians and the freedom of speech. That is why Lenny is kind of important to the pop culture zeitgeist, pretty much just important to culture in general. But enough about the man. Let's take a look at the figure. Let's get him out of the box. You can see this is a very small, compact box too, very efficient. There's not a whole lot of wasted space, but there's also not a whole lot of accessories. Now, without further ado, let's get him out of the box, and let's take a look at Nacelle Toys Legends of Laughter, Lenny Bruce. Okay, here he is out of the packaging. I'm putting the tape measure to him. We can see that Lenny is roughly 5 7/8 to the top of his hair, making him much, much shorter than pretty much any other 1/12 scale figure. You'll see that just how much shorter in the comparisons at the end. Okay, right off the bat, let's start with the sculpt I don't have a problem with. The paint apps I don't have a problem with. The sculpt is pretty much male body, circa 1960s. And that's exactly what we're getting right here. Don't have a problem with that. Don't have an issue with that. I like how we have some bunching right here at the waist on his coat where the one button is buttoned. I like how his tie is skewed a little bit, like he doesn't have it tightened up perfectly straight right there. I like that. I like that we have the wrinkles in the coat back here. I like that we have the seams running down the sides on each side as well. And I like the seams running down on the pants and then coming down to the cuffs. They're not quite even, just like they're a little longer hanging over the shoes. And then of course we have the shoes themselves, black patent leather shoes. You can see the laces. You can see like that very angular toe that they come to right there. A little bit of heels back here. very much a 1960s look, very much what somebody like Lenny would be wearing in the 1960s. I also really like the face sculpt on Lenny. I think it is a decent likeness. Doesn't nail it 100%, but it could be argued, if you've seen photos of Lenny, that he just has one of those faces kind of like Mark Hamill, where it's hard to capture it, you know, in 3D plastic, other than maybe just looking right at him. The issues that I do have come from the paint apps here in the face, that I don't think the paint apps are doing the sculpt any favors right there. They could have used some highlighting. They could have used some coloring on the lips. The eyes, they could have used, definitely benefited from some photoreal on this. I really dig, though, that both of them are looking forward. I also like the arch of the eyebrows. The hair piece, I feel, could have used a wash as well to bring out some of the detail in it, rather than just looking like a piece of plastic that's dropped on his noggin right there. The suit not having many paint apps other than like black for the shoes and then the tie right here, don't have a problem with that. Monochrome, once again, that was very much the style for the time, so I'm fine with that. The biggest issue I have, and you've probably already figured it out for yourself, is the trenching and the joints are so ugly on a figure this size. This just looks horrible. The trenching, especially in the arms right here, the kneecaps that he has, and then the cut for the bicep swivel, doesn't do the sculpt any favors at all. The articulation also isn't the best, and we're about to take a look at that. The head, there's no tilt, there's no up and down. There is side to side that you can get it that far, and you can get it that far. Truthfully, I could probably do a 360 spin, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a good angle on it on camera, but you can see that where the neck meets the body, it's not a perfect circle, it's an oval, like a shirt collar would be. So props to them having a realistic sculpt right here, but it does hinder it. But you can get side to side, and like, how often are you going to need to do an exorcist and spin his head all the way around? The arms, there's no butterfly joint in there, but the arms will do a full 360 spin, but you can see because of the cut of the coat that when they come up to here, they come out to an angle a bit. Once again, not really a problem. They will come up to just above 90 right there. This looks a little odd though, that like they're going for that slouched shoulder look, but whenever his arms come up, they do seem a little, the angle is a little wonky, but when you put it back down, it fits perfectly fine. Now he does have this bicep swivel right here that is just so ugly. Look at that. That was probably one of the ones that you were looking at, because that was one of the things that my eyes first went to when he came out of the box as well. Double jointed elbows, really great travel. The look of the elbow, the look of the articulation isn't the worst. Also, you got pinless right there for those of you that means something. But just like the trenching in and of itself is just hideous. Also, you can see some slight lighter discoloration on the elbow cap right here, as well as the kneecap down here. Once again, taking a look at the sculpt though, the wrinkle in the arms, very well done right there. Let's get his arms up out of the way. There's nothing going on at the waist. There's a little bit of turn, but that's about it. There's no back and forth, there's no side to side, no ab crunches, no nothing. Just a little bit of turn, little bit of turn. The legs, the coat right here is a very heavy piece and a very stiff piece, and there's no cut in it other than up front. There's no cut in the side, there's no cut in the back. So the legs, especially around the hips, very limited what you can get out of it. It will come forward to there, it will go back only to about there, and coming out to the side, it will stop right there. Now, much like with the bicep swivel, our thigh cut is pretty ugly. As a matter of fact, it's gapping a little, but you do get the thigh swivel right there. Double jointed knees, just like the arms, really great travel going on right there. Joint doesn't necessarily look ugly, just that it's discolored a little. Now, there's no boot cut, but you do have a swivel for the feet. You can get them to go all the way around, but they will start to stretch things, so I'm not going to do it because of the way that the pants come down over the shoe. I'm sure you can hear that squeaking. There's also no real rock. There's no forward, there's no back. There's no forward-facing pin for rock on here. Something else that we're going to talk about before we move on is the cigarette in his hand. It does not come out. It is molded in. It is a permanent piece. It looks good. It could be argued that Lenny always had a cigarette in hand to begin with, but it's in there. And I get if they wanted to put it in his hand and make it part of the sculpt so that you wouldn't lose it, you wouldn't misplace it, that's fine. But give us swappable hands. Give us interchangeable hands so that maybe we have one with the cigarette in, one with the cigarette out. Because as we're about to take a look at, it's not like he comes with many accessories anyway. It would have been cool to give him an additional hand. Also, while we're talking about the hands, I almost forgot that the hands do swivel, but there's no rock. There's no wrist pivot on them at all. Like there's a little bit of looseness right here, but that's not the wrist pivot. So even if you wanted him to have the cigarette in his hand and make it look like he was about to take a drag off of it, you can't angle it down for him to hit. Don't get me wrong though. I like the figure. I'm glad that I have him. Lenny Bruce is kind of a legend to me. Some of my favorite photos, like from People magazine, have been of Lenny Bruce. So I'm glad that I have him. I'm glad somebody made a figure of him because I don't think anybody else actually has. It's just, man, those elbows and knees could have had some work done to them, and I would have liked to have seen an interchangeable hand. Other than that, this works. So the only real accessories Lenny comes with is the microphone and the microphone stand, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But I just want to say that I'm pretty sure Lenny comes with this microphone because I think Nacelle just made one microphone with the intention of giving it to all of the Legends of Laughter series. Because this is not the microphone Lenny should have. At the time that Lenny was doing his shows and the type of microphone that he used, including one of the most iconic photos of Lenny Bruce, this microphone should be a Shure microphone. And I don't know if I can explain what a Shure microphone is. Oh, wait a minute. I think it's on the box. Yeah, so if you take a look at the front of the box, that microphone right there is now called a Shure microphone. And I think it's mainly because that's just the company that makes it. That's the kind that he should have, not this more modern looking mic that he has right here. Now, he also has this mic stand that goes with it, which I don't have a problem with. And the mic fits fairly loosely in the cradle right there. Like, it doesn't feel like the cradle was actually made for this mic, that they were able to just force it in there. Also, if we take a look at it, the mic stand is way too small for the figure. And the figure is not very tall to begin with. That the microphone stand, the mic should come up to at least here, I feel. Or maybe even here at the Adam's apple. So it needs to be like maybe a 1/4 of an inch taller. This also makes it difficult to pose him holding the microphone stand like he was on stage holding the stand talking into it, just because it's too short. And his arms don't really, like without a wrist pivot, it's hard to get him to grip this in a realistic way while it's sitting on the ground. So he can do something like that, but you see what I mean? It should definitely be a taller stand. And now for size comparisons, and yes, we're doing this. Here he is beside Hasbro Marvel Legends Blade and Daredevil Elektra. So you see what I mean when I was talking about how tall he is, the measurement of him. He's much shorter than a lot of current 1/6 scale figures. Now, in reality, Lenny was not a tall guy. He was only maybe about 5'1", maybe 5'2". So you could argue that this is actually how tall he should be compared to other characters in like the Marvel line or G.I. Joe or just a 1/6 line in general. And speaking of G.I. Joe Classified, here he is beside the Dreadnoks, Ripper, and Zorana. Here he is beside Valaverse Action Force Bone Collector version 2 and Pandora. Here he is beside Mattel Masters of the Universe Masterverse, Masters of the Universe movie Skeletor and Evil Lyn. Here he is beside NECA Toys Dungeons & Dragons Warduke and Grimsword. And finally, here he is beside Airborne and me from the G.I. Joe Steel Corps.
That's great, it starts with an earthquake, birds and snakes, an airplane, and Lenny Bruce is not afraid.
On February 4th, 1961, as a blizzard blew through New York City, Lenny Bruce performed before a full house during a midnight showing in Carnegie Hall. Lenny's career had been on a slow build up until that point, but the Carnegie Hall performance would launch him into the spotlight and brought him fame as well as legal troubles. Before the end of that year, Lenny would be arrested in San Francisco for the crime of obscenity during one of his comedy performances. The topic of free speech is often misunderstood. A social media platform shutting you down for what they see as hateful or derogatory speech is not an infringement on your First Amendment rights. Being jailed for criticizing the government or those in power, being arrested because you used a word someone else didn't like, that is what the First Amendment is meant to protect. And that is what Lenny did. Often. He criticized the government. He criticized the police. He criticized religion. He criticized racists and homophobes, something that led directly to his 1961 arrest. No one was above critique in his eyes. No one. He inspired others that would walk his path, the likes of Richard Pryor, Bill Hicks, Dennis Leary, and most notably George Carlin. George was even arrested alongside Lenny at one point. Further, he paved the way for countless others such as Howard Stern, Jon Stewart, Robin Williams, Sarah Silverman, Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, Louis Black, Wanda Sykes, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, Sacha Baron Cohen, Samantha Bee, and many, many others. They are the legacy of Lenny Bruce, and his fearlessness and his fight is just as important now as it was when he was the one on stage. This year marks 100 years since Lenny's birth, but he was taken from us far too early. He died in 1966 at the age of 41 due to an accidental overdose.